In continuation to yesterday's lesson where we were talking about the Indian and the international place value system, today we are going to look at the Roman numerical system. The Roman numerical system is the oldest, the first counting system that was brought about. However, since the Roman counting system or the Roman numericals does not have a symbol for zero, they did not have a place value system. Now, we are all familiar with the Roman figures, at least the smaller ones. For example, this would signify a 1, this would signify a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. What we also need to know is that they had symbols for larger numbers. For example, L represented 50, C was the representative for 100, 500 was denoted by D, the number 1000 could be written as either a K or a M, one of the two. The value of a K or a M was 1000, and a 5000 was written with a V and a bar on top. However, the Roman system, in the absence of a zero, has certain rules. And these rules, the first of these rules is that the number 1, which they represented as the capital I as we call it in the English language, this was 1 in the Roman system, can be subtracted only from 5 and 10. We'll come to this. We'll explain why this 1 can only be subtracted from the number 5 and number 10. The next is x, which is 10, can only be subtracted from the number x, which is representing 10. 10 can only be subtracted from 50 and 100. And V, L, and D, which means V is a 5, L is a 50, D is a 500. These three numbers cannot be or will not be subtracted. So the number 5 cannot be subtracted, the number 50 cannot be subtracted, the number 500 cannot be subtracted. So these are the three basic rules of the Roman numerals. Now, one important concept of the Roman numbers is that any one number, when I say number, I'm talking about a symbol. Any one number symbol cannot be written more than 3 times in continuation. Cannot be written more than 3 times in continuation would mean that if I wanted to write 40 and I know that 10 is represented by x, if I wanted to write 40, I cannot write 10, 20, 30, 40. I cannot write this because in this case, the number 10 is exceeding its limit of 3. Therefore, 40 cannot be represented by 4 x's. In the absence of writing 40 by the repetition of 10 4 times, what other means do I have to write 40? 40 could be written as 50 minus 10. Now, how do I write minus? How do I write plus when I'm talking about Roman systems? The number 50 is represented by L. I have to subtract 10 from this to reach 40. And the way I'm going to subtract 10 from this is, the symbol for 10 is X. I will write the smaller number before the larger number. When a smaller number is written before the larger number, it means subtraction. This number represents 10. This symbol represents 50. The 10 comes before the 50, which means subtraction. The interpretation of XL, which if you go to the clothes shop says extra large, but we are not talking about that. XL basically means the smaller number preceding the bigger number, which signifies subtraction. Now, in the same way, you will see that there is no subtraction sign in this, like we have in the Indian or the international system. Now, in the same way, if I have to write addition in the Roman system, when a smaller symbol follows a bigger symbol, for example, LX. When I write the value of L is 50, the value of X is 10, the smaller number comes after the bigger number. This signifies addition. LX would mean L is 50, X is 10. So this is another rule. When the smaller symbol comes before the larger symbol, it means subtraction. When the smaller number follows the larger number, it means addition. So we have learned a few things. Number one, 1 can be subtracted only from 5 and 10. Well, as a rule, you can just cram this up and, say, because it is a rule, I don't have a choice. But the important thing is to understand this. 1 can be subtracted only from 5 and 10. Why? Why can 1 only be subtracted from 5 and 10? If 1 could not be subtracted from 5, you could never write or get a symbol for 4. How do you get the symbol for 4? The symbol for 4 would have been 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like the symbol for 3 is 3 ones, the symbol for 2 is 2 ones, the symbol for 1 is 1 1. Why is the symbol for 4 this? Because any one number or symbol cannot be written more than 3 times. So this is out. Now when you cannot write 4 with 4 ones, the only other way you have to write 4 is, and we've just done this here. Smaller number coming before the larger number means subtraction. 1 comes before 5, which means 5 subtracts 1, and that's how you reach 4. In the same way, if you could not subtract 1 from 10, you will never be able to write the number 9, because the only other way to write the number 9 is 5, 6, 7, 8. We have our 8, but you cannot write 9 like this. Why? Because the ones exceed the limit of being written more than thrice. Because you cannot write the ones 4 times, you cannot combine 4 ones with a 5 to get 9. The only other option to write 9 is 1, 10. Smaller number comes before the larger number, signifies subtraction. The larger number, which is 10, subtracts the smaller number. That's how you reach 9. So these are the basic concepts of the Roman number. So what have we learned so far? So far, and this of course I'm sure, being in class 6, you are familiar with this. In fact, you should be familiar till not only 10, but you should be familiar with And why I say you should be familiar with Roman figures from 1 to 12 is because you have classrooms. For example, you are in class 6 and class 6 is signified by this. So outside your classroom, you do have the symbol which says you are in class 6. In the same way, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and your school has classes till class 12. So you have seen these numbers in and out of classrooms. So you are familiar with this. You carry on from here. 13 will be written as x 1, 2, 3. 14 will be written as x 10 plus 4. Remember that the plus and minus signs do not exist in Roman numbers. When you write xv, you're basically writing 10 plus 5, 15. This means 10 plus 5. The symbol is missing, but because the smaller number, which is a 5, is after the bigger number, which is a 10, it automatically means addition. Right? So we've done the symbols from the Roman numbers. The largest symbols are grouped as these. L stands for 50, C stands for 100, D for 500, 1000 is represented by K or M, 5000 with a V and a bar. Okay. Now, we have understood why 1 can be subtracted only from 5 and 10. If you were not able to subtract 1 from 5, you could never write 4. If you could not subtract 1 from 10, you could never write 9. So this has been taken care of. The next is x, which is 10. 10 can only be subtracted from L and C. What is L? 50. What is C? 100. So x can be subtracted only from 50 or 100. The next is VLD. VLD, V is a 5, L is a 50, D is a 500, cannot be subtracted. This is important. Well, you won't come to a situation where you have to do this very often, but let's look at the first one. V, 5 cannot be subtracted. You cannot subtract 5. So, I say, for example, let us represent the number 95. How will you write 95? You cannot write 50, 60, 70, 80, 95. I mean, technically it's fine because this is a 50 plus 10 60 plus 10 70 plus 10 80 plus 10 90 plus 5 95. But this is incorrect. And you should all know by now that this is incorrect because any one symbol or number cannot be written more than 3 times. And the tens here are exceeding that. 50, 60, 70, 80, 95, perfectly fine, except the rule doesn't permit it. So when the rule doesn't permit it, you have to find another way to write 95. 95 is basically 100 minus 5. When the smaller number is written in before the bigger number, it means subtraction. So 95, what is 100? 100 is C. If you write the smaller number before it, V, it means 100 minus 5 is equal to 95. Right? Wrong. Why? Because V cannot be subtracted. You are not allowed to subtract V. So what do? You cannot write 10 4 times. You cannot subtract the number 5. How will you write 95? So you have to think of a new thing. And the new thing is how else to reach 95 in the absence of writing 4 tens, in the absence of subtracting 5. So the only other way is you take the 100, you subtract 10 from it, xc, smaller number coming before the larger number, xc means 100 minus 10, so that's 90, add 5 to it. So what this basically means is 100 is subtracting 10 and you get 90 from that, to which you're adding a v and reaching 95. These are some of the rules you need to memorize, because if your papers carry symbols like this or symbols like this to represent numbers like this, then there's a problem. So, and the problem is because there is a rule, you're breaking the rule, right? So, when the Roman numeral system was formed, these rules were formed with that system. Now, I think there's no space left on the board. Let me clear out some space and look at some numbers and change them back into the Indian system or the numeral system that we are following. Let's take, for example, the number 59. How will you represent the number 59? We have a symbol for 50. We have a symbol for 9. There's no problem. This is 59. There's 50. Smaller number comes after the bigger number. Addition, 50 plus 9 is... That's a simple enough question. Let's see the next one. How will you write 324? Yes, 324. So the question is, how do you write 300 first? Now, okay, before we come to 324, there's another thing I want to tell you. A smaller number written before the larger number, for example, 40, is written as 50 minus 10, right? This number 10 can, when you're subtracting the smaller symbol from a larger symbol, the smaller symbol cannot be repeated, which goes to say, if I wanted to write 30, I cannot say 50 minus 10, 40 minus 10. This subtraction can only happen once. So when I'm going to write 30, I have the choice of writing 10, 20, 30. It doesn't exceed more than 3. So subtraction, only one subtraction allowed, not twice. Why this example came in here? Because I have to write 300. And for writing 300, I can also say 300 is 500 minus 200. I don't have a symbol for 200, but I have a symbol for 100. So if this rule didn't apply, I could also write 300 as 500 minus 100 minus 100. But I cannot write the subtraction twice. So the only way I have to write 300 is, I know the symbol for 100, and I know that I can use the symbol 3 times. So 100, 200, 300. My 300 has been taken care of. Now I need to write 24. I have a symbol for 10. That's 310, 320. I have a symbol for 4. What does this basically mean is, it basically means C plus C plus C plus X plus X plus V. And what are these C's and V's? This is 100, this is 100, this is 100, this is a 10, this is a 10, this is a 4. 1, 2, 310, 20, 324, right? Let's take another one. Let's say I want to write 400. I have a symbol for 100, 100 plus 100, 200 plus 100, 300 plus 100, 400. Is that right? Of course not, because the rule of repetition for 3 times has exceeded. So 400 in that case can be written as 500 minus 100. We know the symbol for 500. We know the symbol for 100. CD is 400, because what this means is this is 100, this is 500. 100 comes before 500, it means subtraction. Smaller number coming before bigger number, subtraction, which means then we can also look at equations, or we can also look at mathematical operations in the Roman system. For example, let me say so the question is, you have to add a Roman number to a Roman number and give the answer in a Roman number. But before we can find the answer in the Roman number, we need to know the value of this number. The value of this number is 10, 20, 35 plus x is 10, L is 50. 10 comes before 50. 10 gets subtracted from 50, 40, which is equal to 75. 75? Yes? 75? This is not the answer. You have to give the answer back in the Roman figure. So convert 75 back into the Roman figure. How many ways are there to write 75 in the Roman figure? You can write 100 minus 10, 100 is C, minus 10, 90, minus 10, 80, minus 5, 75. Now, in doing this, you have broken 2 very beautiful rules. Number 1, you cannot subtract more than once, but you have subtracted 3 times. And in any case, this cannot be subtracted at all. So if you do this, the Romans will be very upset. We don't want to do that. So we go back and see how else we can write 75. We can write a 50. We can write a 60. We can write a 70. And we can write a 75. Everybody is happy. You're happy because you get marks. The Romans are not upset. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. So that's 50, 60, 75. Now let's look at a question in which there is subtraction. For example, let's see, XCV minus, right? Now let's look at this number. Whatever this number is, and this is easy, we can just see it. That's a 50 minus 10. Smaller number comes before the bigger number. So 40 is getting subtracted from something. What is this something? XC4. X 10, C 100. 10 comes before 100 minus. So basically what is this? 10 minus 100, 90. 90 plus V, 1V is 4, so this is 94 minus 94 minus, that's a 50, that's a 10, that's a 40, 94 minus 40 is 54. How are you going to write 54? You cannot write this 5 times. You can't write it more than 3 times. You don't need to. You know the symbol for 50 is right here. 54. Right? So that pretty much brings us to the end of Roman numbers. I think let's do a quick recap. The symbols for 1 to 10, or rather, you should be aware of symbols from 1, you are already aware of symbols from 1 to 12. The ones that you might need to brush up or revise or look into once again is the number 50, symbol L, number 100, symbol C, 500 D, K and M, 1000, V with a slash on top, V with a bar on top, 5000. And then let's quickly go through the rules. No symbol can be repeated more than 3 times. That's the first one. The number 1 can only be subtracted from the 5 and the 10 because there's no other way to write a 4 and a 9. And then we have C can only be subtracted, 100 can only be subtracted from a 500 or a 1000, which is a D and a M. M can also be written as a K, either K or M. And then we come to the operations. If the smaller symbol comes before the larger symbol, it means subtraction. In the same way, if the smaller symbol comes after the bigger symbol, it means addition. And what else? And the V, which is the 5, cannot be subtracted at all. So that brings us to the end of Roman figures. So with that, we complete knowing our numbers. We've done the Indian place value system, we've done the international place value system, and the Romans don't actually have a place value system because they don't have a symbol for 0. And in the absence of that, they have symbols to denote numbers, and we've just gone through that chapter. Thank you very much.